At the group's year-end conference, my wife awarded her male special assistant 5.2 million yuan in front of all the executives. I put down the water glass in my hand and pushed my chair back. Su Nianqing turned her head to look at me, her high heels tapping quickly 3 times on the floor as she leaned over and whispered, "Don't leave yet. There's a document for you to sign after the meeting." I didn't move. 5.2 million yuan. Everyone among the more than 40 people present understood the meaning of that number. Su Nianqing, dressed in a black fitted suit dress with her hair coiled up at the back of her head, stood in front of the projection screen and had just handed a crystal trophy to Jiang Yabai. Jiang Yabai bowed slightly as he took the trophy, his tie clip glinting under the lights. He stood beside her, less than a step apart from her. Yabai has been with the company for 14 months. He has led the team to win 3 10 million level projects, been on business trips for more than 200 days, and hasn't taken a single day of annual leave. Su Nianqing's voice was calm, at an unhurried pace. The group has decided to award an additional 5.2 million yuan, exactly as the annual special contribution bonus. Sparse applause broke out. The vice president of technology sitting next to me glanced sideways at me, then quickly looked away. I've been at this company for 3 years. As the technical director, I am in charge of the entire group's technical architecture and core systems. When Su Nianqing grew the company from a small team of 20 people to its current size of 800, I wrote every line of key code at the bottom layer of the system. She never gave me any bonus, not even verbal praise. But today, standing in front of the entire group, she pronounced the figure of 5.2 million yuan, in the tone she only used when negotiating with major clients. I stood up. Su Nianqing walked quickly to my side and pressed her fingers on my wrist. The pressure wasn't heavy, but the placement was precise. She lowered her voice. "The Siju, sit down. There's still one more document." I looked at her. Her expression didn't flicker at all, as if she hadn't just publicly awarded a man 5.2 million yuan, but had been reporting this quarter's server maintenance costs. I didn't sit down, but I didn't leave either. After the meeting ended, the others left in 2s and 3s. Su Nianqing walked ahead, her high heels tapping evenly on the marble floor of the corridor. She pushed open the door to her office and stepped aside to let me in. The blinds were drawn down. She took a craft paper envelope out of the drawer and pushed it to the center of the desk. "Open it." I tore open the envelope. It was a divorce agreement. The printed ink was fresh, with her personal seal stamped in the bottom left corner. The property division was clearly stated. Assets under each party's name before marriage remained their separate property. And joint property acquired after marriage would be distributed according to the proportion of capital contribution. There was no compensation, no transition period. I flipped to the last page where one signature line was blank. "When did you prepare this?" 2 weeks ago. Chu. Nianqing sat in her office chair, her hands folded on the desk. "Siju, we've been married for 3 years. You should be able to feel that there's no point in continuing this relationship." I put the agreement back on the desk. "You awarded Jiang Yabai 5.2 million yuan at the conference today just to make me sign this?" Su Nianqing didn't deny it. "Sign it, and what happened today never happened. If you don't, I'll file for divorce through litigation." The air conditioner hummed in the office. I picked up the signature pen on the desk. Su Nianqing's fingers twitched slightly. I put the pen down. "I'll give you an answer tomorrow." I turned around and pushed the door open. Jiang Yibai was standing at the door. He was holding an Americano. He paused when he saw me, then stepped aside to make way. His expression was perfectly natural. He even nodded at me. As I passed by him, I caught a whiff of a faint woody perfume. It was the bottle on Su Nianqing's dresser. She'd had it for 2 years and never worn it in front of me. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the first basement floor. Before the elevator doors closed, I saw Jiang Yubai walk into Su Nianqing's office with the coffee. The lights in the underground parking garage were dim. I sat in the driver's seat and dug out a number from my contacts that I'd saved long ago but never called. He Chenjuan. It rang twice before connecting.
Siju? Yeah.
There was a second of silence on the other end. "You finally called." He Cheng Yuan's voice was calm, with a certainty that had been held back for a long time. I've been waiting for this call for a year and 2 months. I leaned back against the seat and stared at the car ceiling. Those things you mentioned before, do you still have them? I do. And it's far more serious than you think. He Chen Yuan paused. Your President Su and her dear assistant have had several very interesting transactions on the books. 10 o'clock tomorrow, the usual place. Got it. The call ended. I started the engine, and the car slowly pulled out of the garage. Sunlight streamed in from the exit, making me squint. In the rearview mirror, the glass tower of Su's technology reflected the afternoon light, dazzlingly bright. 3 years. I've been Su Nyanking's husband for 3 years, and her company's technical director for 3 years. I built the underlying architecture. I wrote the core algorithms. I pulled 3 all-nighters of 48 hours straight to rescue the system from 3 crashes. I single-handedly got through 2 technical due diligence audits. She grew the business from a small outsourcing workshop to a technology group now valued at 1.2 billion yuan. And today, with 5.2 million yuan, she told everyone in public, the Siju is nothing. I stepped on the gas and merged into the traffic. A red light. When I stopped, I saw an advertisement for Su's technology posted on the bus stop sign by the roadside. Su's technology and intelligence leads the future. I stared at those words for 3 seconds, then rolled up the window. At 9:50 the next morning, I stood outside Su Nyanking's office door, holding that craft paper envelope in my hand. I pushed the door open and walked in. Su Nyanking was looking at her computer. She glanced up at what I was holding, and the corner of her mouth twitched slightly. Made up your mind? I set the envelope down in front of her. She reached for it. I didn't stop her. She opened it and pulled out the papers inside. She flipped to the first page. Her expression shifted from calm to confused to... Her face turned completely pale. It wasn't the divorce agreement. It was an equity pledge contract. It was clearly stated, 34% of Su's Technology's underlying technology patents are registered under the name The Siju. Su Nyanking looked up at me sharply. The Siju, what is this supposed to mean? I put my hands in my pockets. It means you can get divorced if you want. But you won't take a single line of code of this company's technology with you. Su Nyanking's fingers crumpled the paper, her knuckles white. I turned to leave. I paused when I reached the door. Oh, and about that 5.2 million yuan, make sure. Zhang Yibai declares it for personal income tax. The door closed behind me. The corridor was quiet. I walked toward the elevator. My phone vibrated. He Chen Yuan sent a message. The materials are sorted out 3 times more than expected. Your President Su has quite the nerve. I put my phone back in my pocket and pressed the button for the first floor. As the elevator descended, I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes for a moment. 3 years. Every debt that's owed will be collected down to the last cent. After leaving the company, I drove straight to a private restaurant in the west of the city. He Chen Yuan was already sitting in the private room. A black file bag sat in front of him, next to an untouched cup of Longjing tea. When he saw me come in, he pushed the file bag over. Everything's in here. I sat down and opened the bag. Inside was a stack of printouts, thicker than I'd expected. The top sheet was a screenshot of bank statements, marking 7 transfer records ranging from 500,000 to 3 million yuan, all sent to the same offshore shell company. What's the story with this company? It's registered in the Cayman Islands, and the actual controller is Zhang Yibai. He Cheng Yuan picked up his teacup and took a sip. It's registered in his cousin's name, but the fund flow can be traced back to his personal account. I kept flipping through the pages. The second document was a set of WeChat chat screenshots. The avatars were blurred, but the remark names were visible. Ching and Yibai. There wasn't much content, but every message was revealing. You arranged the business trip to Bangkok next week. Business class, same flight. I've booked the hotel. A suite. Thanks for the hard work. I'll make it up to you when you get back. The date was 3 months ago. I remembered that business trip. Su Nyanking told me she was going to meet partners in Southeast Asia. She was gone for 5 days and didn't mention anything about it when she came back. I set the chat records aside and kept reading. The third document was a set of photos. Airport, hotel lobby, restaurant. The two of them appeared in the same frame, standing very close. There were no inappropriate actions, but that sense of familiarity couldn't be explained by a simple superior-subordinate relationship. Who took these? People I hired. He Cheng-Yuan leaned back in his chair. You mentioned once a year ago that you thought something was off between Su Nanking and Jiang Yabai. I started keeping an eye on them then. You've been watching them for a year? On and off. He spread his hands. The financial trail took the longest to trace. There were several layers around that shell company. I went through all the materials from start to finish. Bank statements, chat records, photos, shell company registration information, fund flow charts. A complete chain of evidence. That's enough. I gathered the materials and put them back into the file bag. What are you going to do with them? He Chen-Yuan looked at me. Not yet. Not yet? He raised an eyebrow. She already made you sign the divorce agreement. Precisely because she's in a hurry, I'm not. I picked up my teacup and took a sip. I built Sue's Technology's core system, and all the underlying patents are in my name. If she gets divorced now, it's like she wants me to leave with nothing, and leave all the technology to her. So you showed her the patent contract today? That's right. He Cheng-Yuan smiled slightly. How did she react? She didn't look too happy. Then she'd definitely bring people in to discuss this. He Cheng-Yuan tapped the desk with his finger. Legal affairs, lawyers, maybe technical assessors. She needs to figure out how much those patents of yours are really worth, and whether she can work around them. She can't work around them. I was certain of that. For the underlying framework used in Sue's Technology's core products, my name is listed as the technical inventor for every single module. This isn't a simple matter of code ownership, it's registered intellectual property. The company can use the technology, but the ownership belongs to the inventor. This was an agreement signed by Su Nanking herself 3 years ago. Back then, the company had just started out and had no money. She asked me to contribute my technology as equity, on the condition that I retain the intellectual property rights. She probably didn't think much of it at the time. A tech guy, what trouble could he possibly cause? He Chen-Yuan, help me set up a meeting with someone. Who? Zhou Tinjuan. He Chen-Yuan's expression shifted slightly. Zhou Tinjuan, from Shui Capital? That's him. You know him? I didn't answer. I stood up and tucked the file bag under my arm. Arrange it for the day after tomorrow afternoon. Got it. He Cheng-Yuan didn't ask any more questions. I walked out of the private room and down the corridor. My phone rang. It was Su Nanking. I stared at her name on the screen for 5 seconds before answering. The Siju, what was the meaning of that thing you gave me today? Her voice wasn't as calm as it had been yesterday. There was suppressed urgency in it. Exactly what it says. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. There was 2 seconds of silence on the other end of the line. Come back to the company this afternoon. We need to talk. No need. I'm taking the day off. The Siju, I hung up. I put the phone on silent and stuffed it into my pocket. When I stepped out of the restaurant, the sun was shining brightly outside. I stood at the entrance and took a deep breath of the dry air. 3 years. 3 years of being the invisible man behind her. Enough. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 17 missed calls showed up on my phone. 9 from Su Nanking. 3 from the company's administrative director. 2 from the legal department. And 3 from Jiang Yabai. I didn't return a single one. I sat in my apartment, this premarital home I'd barely lived in during our 3-year marriage, having stay at Su Nanking's villa all this time, and went through the materials He Cheng-Yuan had given me once more. I made 3 copies of the bank statements. The photos were saved to an encrypted USB drive. The chat records were sorted chronologically, with key points marked. When that was done, I turned on my computer. I logged into an email account I hadn't used in a long time. There was an email from 2 years ago, sent by a tech company in Silicon Valley. The subject line read, Offer letter, Chief Technology Officer. An annual salary of $1.2 million plus stock options. They'd reached out to me 2 years ago because of a paper I'd published in an international journal on distributed system architecture. I turned it down back then. Because Su Nyanking said the company was in the final stretch of its Series B funding round, and couldn't do without me. I believed her. Looking back now, she was already going on frequent business trips with Jiang Yabai back then. I closed the email. Then I opened another folder. It contained the technical documentation for all of Su's Technologies core products. Not the version on the company servers, but the original version I'd saved locally myself. Every version iteration, every architecture adjustment, every algorithm optimization, all had complete development logs and timestamps. These were my trump cards. Not all of them, but enough. At 6 in the evening, the doorbell rang. I got up to answer the door. Su Nyanking was standing outside. She'd changed into a beige trench coat, let her hair down, and was wearing much lighter makeup than during the day. She'd come to me looking like this, which meant things were more serious than she'd expected. "The Siju, we need to talk." "Come in." She walked into the living room and glanced around. She'd only been to this apartment twice, once to help me move before we got married, and once to sign the property deed. She sat down on the sofa, her hands resting on her knees. "I had legal look over that patent contract. Unhung. They said you are indeed the registered inventor of those technologies, but since they were developed during your employment at the company, there's a dispute over whether they qualify as service inventions." "There's no dispute." I sat across from her. 3 years ago, you and I signed a supplementary agreement explicitly stating that intellectual property rights would be retained in exchange for technology equity. The agreement was witnessed by lawyers and filed with the industrial and commercial authorities. Su Nyanking's fingers tightened slightly. "That agreement ... double quotes, you forgot?" She said nothing. "Or did you think I'd never use it?" Across the sofa, Su Nyanking looked up at me. Her gaze was different from how it had been during the day. During the day, it had been a condescending announcement. Now it was reassessment. "Siju, we can work this out amicably." "All right." I leaned back against the sofa. "You go first." "The terms of the divorce agreement can be renegotiated." "Like what?" "Your technology patents can be transferred to the company at a discounted price. I'll offer a fair sum." "How much?" 20 million. I looked at her and said nothing. 30 million. She raised her offer, her tone still steady. "Siju, you know those patents have no commercial value in your personal hands. They can only be monetized through the company's products." "You're right." Su Nyanking's shoulders relaxed slightly. "But money isn't what I want." Her shoulders tensed up again. "What do you want?" "What I want, you can't give me." I stood up, walked to the door and pulled it open. "That's it for today. Go back and think about it. There's no rush." Su Nyanking stood up and looked at me from the middle of the living room. A few seconds later she walked over and stopped at the doorway. "The Siju, you've changed." "No." I looked at her. "You just never really looked at me." She left. The sound of her high heels faded away down the hallway. I closed the door and leaned against it. My phone vibrated. He Cheng Yuan, meeting with Zhou Tingyuan is set. 3 o'clock the day after tomorrow, at his office. I replied with "got it." Then I opened the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. I stood by the window and watched as Su Nyanking's car lit up its taillights in the parking lot below and drove out of the residential complex. After the day after tomorrow, everything would be different. Zhou Tingyuan's office was on the 47th floor of the East City Financial Center. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of half the city's skyline. He looked younger than I'd expected, around 37 or 38, dressed in a casual suit with no tie. "The Siju, I've long admired your work." He stood up to shake my hand. "I read your paper on distributed architecture. It was brilliantly written. You're too kind, Mr. Zhou. Have a seat." I sat down on the sofa. He had his assistant bring tea, then closed the door. He Cheng Yuan filled me in on the general situation. Zhou Tingyuan sat across from me and crossed his legs. "You're planning to leave Su's Technology?" "That's right." "And you hold the technology patents?" "All the core ones, yes." He nodded. "Shui Capital has been eyeing the distributed systems track for the past year. Your technology is exactly what we've been missing." "I know." Zhou Tingyuan smiled slightly. "Straight to the point." "All right, Let me lay out the terms directly. Go ahead, Shui. We'll invest 50 million yuan, and you'll contribute your technology. We'll launch a new company. You'll hold 51% and I'll hold 49%. You'll be the CEO. I picked up my teacup and took a sip. 50 million. Combined with the assessed value of my technology patents, the new company would be valued at over 100 million yuan upon establishment. There's one prerequisite. I set down my teacup. Name it. I need to fully revoke the technology licensing for Sue's technology. Once I leave, they can no longer use any of the patents under my name. Zhou Tingguan thought for 2 seconds. That could trigger legal disputes. It won't. I pulled a copy of the supplementary agreement out of my bag and handed it to him. The contract states clearly that the intellectual property rights belong to me personally, and the company only has usage rights for as long as I'm employed there. Zhou Tingguan took it, read through it, then passed it to the legal director sitting beside him. After reading it, the legal director nodded at Zhou Tingguan. The clauses do support his claim. Zhou Tingguan handed the agreement back to me. Then there's no issue. He stood up and held out his hand. Pleasure doing business with you. I shook his hand. Pleasure doing business with you. When I left Shui Capital, I was alone in the elevator. There were 3 unread messages on my phone. Su Nianqing, you didn't come to the company today. What's the meaning of this? Su Nianqing, think things through before you act. Don't be impulsive. Su Nianqing, come to my office at 10 tomorrow morning. One final talk. I put my phone away. One final talk. Fine, let's have one final talk. 10:00 the next morning. I showed up at Su Nianqing's office. Right. On time, but she wasn't the only one inside. Jiang Yebai was sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, twirling a pen between his fingers. Su Nianqing sat behind her desk, several documents spread out in front of her. And there was a third person, the group's legal director surnamed Wei. 3 against 1. Have a seat. Su Nianqing gestured to the other side of the sofa. I didn't sit down. Just say whatever you came to say. Su Nianqing glanced at Director Wei. Director Wei stood up, holding a document in his hand. Mr. B, here's the situation. We've re-examined the status of the technology patents under your name, and we believe a considerable portion of them qualify as service inventions. Supplementary Agreement, Article 3, Clause 2. I cut him off. Director Wei froze for a moment. Intellectual property rights belong to the inventor, and the company shall have non-exclusive usage rights for the duration of the inventor's employment. I recited it word for word. Signed by both parties, witnessed by lawyers, and filed with the industrial and commercial authorities. Director Wei, as a legal professional, you should know the legal validity of this agreement. Director Wei looked towards Su Nianqing. Su Nianqing's expression didn't change. Siju, sit down and talk. No need. I looked at her. You didn't call me here to talk. You called me here to pressure me. But you've got one thing wrong. What's that? I'm not the one who should be in a hurry. Zheng Yibai spoke up at that point. Mr. Don't be so sure of yourself. He put the pen away and stood up beside Su Nianqing. Even if you hold the patents, you can't build a product alone. Technology without commercialization is just a pile of worthless paper. I glanced at him. And you are? That question caught all 3 of them off guard. Zheng Yimei's expression shifted slightly. Jiang Yibei, special assistant to the group. We see each other at the weekly meetings. I know who you are. I looked away. What I mean is, what gives you the right to stand here and pass judgment on my technology patents? The office fell silent for 3 seconds. Su Nianqing spoke up. Siju, I asked Yibai to be here. I turned to look at her. Anything else? Su Nianqing tapped her fingers lightly on the desk twice. I'll offer 50 million yuan to buy out all your patents. Not for sale. Su Nianqing's fingers stilled. 60 million? Not for sale. The Siju, what exactly do you want? I put my hands in my pockets and looked at her. I'm resigning. When those words landed, Director Wei's expression changed the most out of everyone in the office. He turned to look at Su Nianqing, his mouth twitching once without making a sound. Su Nianqing sat there motionless, but her fingertips pressed against the desk, turning white. And after you resign, it won't be any of your business anymore. Zheng Yibai took half a step forward. Mr. If you leave and take the patents with you, the underlying architecture of the company's products will collapse. I finished for him. I know, this is blackmail. No, I'm simply exercising my legal rights. I pulled a printed resignation letter out of my pocket and set it down in front of Su Nyanking. It takes effect in 30 days. During this period, I will complete the handover, but only for project management work. The code and algorithm models are my personal intellectual property and are not within the scope of the handover. Su Nyanking didn't touch the resignation letter. She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger, it was being caught off guard. Have you thought this through? I've been thinking about it for 3 years. I turned and walked toward the door. The Siju. I stopped. Once you walk out that door, there's no going back. Su Nyanking. I didn't turn around. You blocked the way back 3 years ago. I pushed the door open and walked out. A few employees passing by in the hallway saw me coming out of the president's office and looked at me with curiosity. I didn't care. I stepped into the elevator. My phone vibrated. He Chen Yuan. The registration procedures for the new company are done. You pick the name. I thought for 2 seconds, typed a few characters and sent it. Ruichi Technology. He Cheng Yuan. Interesting. The elevator reached the first basement floor. I walked into the parking garage and got in the car. I glanced at myself in the rearview mirror. My face was calm, no emotion in my eyes. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe freely. News of my resignation spread through the company that same afternoon. People in the tech department found out first. My team had over 40 people. A few core members asked about it in the internal group chat, but I didn't reply. The next day, 2 technical supervisors asked me out for dinner. The first thing they said when we sat down was, "Mr. Wherever you go, we'll follow." I didn't agree right away. Think it through first. There are risks to job hopping. I looked into the non-compete clauses for you. There are flaws in the terms of your contracts. But that doesn't mean there won't be any trouble at all. The 2 exchanged a glance. Mr. We've worked under you for 3 years. We know perfectly well who does the real work and who takes the credit. All right. I nodded. Contact me once my handover period is over. The 3rd day. Su Nyanking had administration notify me to attend an impromptu meeting. I didn't go. Administration called again. Mr. The President Su says it's about system migration. Your presence is required. Tell her to send an email. Communicate in writing. I hung up the phone. From that day on, Su Nyanking started communicating with me via email. I replied to everyone, using formal language and CCD legal and HR. I was making sure of one thing. During the handover period, all my actions would have written records, leaving no room for loopholes. The 7th day. A rumor started circulating in the industry. Shui Capital had invested in a new distributed systems company, founded by the former technical director of Su's Technology. The rumor didn't come from me, and it didn't come from He Cheng Yuan. It was Zhou Tinjuan who'd deliberately leaked it. He was testing the waters, seeing how the industry would react. The reaction was bigger than expected. 3 tech media outlets published articles that day, with similar headlines. Shui Capital bets on emerging tech company, founded by former CTO of Su's Technology. That night I had over a dozen missed calls on my phone. Headhunters, peers, former partners I'd turned down, and one number from a partner at Huasheng Capital, the lead investor in Su's Technology's Series B round. I answered that call. Mr. This is Lin Yan from Huasheng. Hello, Mr. Lin. Just a quick chat. We're paying close attention to your departure from Su's. I understand. Su's core technology is deeply tied to you. With you gone, we need to reassess its valuation. You can discuss that with President Su. Of course. But I want to confirm one thing first. Will you revoke your patent licensing after you resign? That's what the contract stipulates. There was 3 seconds of silence on the other end. Understood. Thank you, Mr. I'll treat you to dinner sometime. All right. After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair. Huashan Capital was the lead investor in Su's Technologies Series B round, having invested 100 million yuan. If they lose confidence in Su's valuation, Su Nianqing will run into trouble with her upcoming Series C funding round. I didn't do this on purpose, but this is the consequence of her own actions. The 10th day, Su Nianqing asked to meet me. This time it wasn't at the company, but at a private club. When I arrived, she was already sitting inside. 2 untouched glasses of red wine sat in front of her. She was wearing a light blue knit sweater, her hair loose, with barely any makeup on. A rare look for her. I sat across from her. Go ahead. Su Nianqing picked up her wine glass, didn't drink, and set it down again. People from Huashan contacted you? They did. What did you tell them? The truth. She was silent for a few seconds. Siju, do you realize that by doing this, the company's Series C round will, your Series C round? I corrected her. Her fingers tightened around the stem of the glass. You're getting back at me. No. I'm just doing what I need to do. Then what exactly do you want? I've already offered 60 million, and you're still not satisfied? Su Nianqing. I looked at her. Do you still think this is about money? She said nothing. You know perfectly well how much I've done for you over these 3 years. But what did you see me as? A tag-along accessory? A tool you could replace any time? I didn't. 5.2 million yuan. I cut her off. You awarded Zheng Ye by 5.2 million yuan in front of 40-something people. Then turned right around and asked me to sign the divorce agreement. Do you think that didn't tell everyone that the Siju is worthless in your eyes? Her Adam's apple bobbed slightly. You handle things exactly the way you do business. I stood up. Intimidate the other person first, then force them into submission. Siju, but you forgot one thing. I looked down at her. I'm not your business partner. I'm your husband. Or rather I was. I set the car key in my hand on the table, the key to the car she'd given me. Keep the car. I've signed the divorce agreement. Have legal follow-up tomorrow. Su Nianqing looked up sharply. You signed it? I did. What about the patents? Patents are patents. Divorce is divorce. I put my hands back in my pockets. The two are separate. If you want to buy the patents, fine. Go through commercial negotiations and offer a reasonable price. But it won't be 60 million. Then how much? Your legal team will figure it out. I turned and left. When I walked out of the club, it was drizzling outside. I stood under the eave for a while, then called a car. A message popped up on my phone. Zhou Tinjuan. The company registration is done. We'll get the business license tomorrow. Also, 3 potential clients reached out to us on their own, wanting to discuss cooperation. I replied with 3 words, got it. The rain grew heavier. Cars on the road lined up in a long stream with their lights on. I sat in the back seat, watching the curtain of rain outside the window, and suddenly remembered something. When we got married 3 years ago, it was also raining. Su Nianqing stood at the hotel entrance in her white wedding dress, looked out at the rain and said, getting married on a rainy day means a long life ahead. It was indeed a long life ahead. Just so long that it felt suffocating. So long that you could barely breathe. The 20th day of the handover period. Rui Qi. Technology's office renovation was finished. It's on the 12th floor of Building B in the South City Science Park. Not big, 400 square meters, enough for our needs. The team has 8 people for now. 2 technical supervisors who followed me from Su's, 1 front-end developer, 2 back-end developers, 1 product manager, 1 admin, plus me. He Chen Yuan helped poach a sales director, someone he'd managed before, very capable. We don't need many people at the starting stage. Zhou Tingguan said in the video conference. Polish the first product first, build up our reputation. We'll launch the first version within 3 months. I gave the timeline. Is that enough time? Enough. I built the core architecture 3 years ago. What we need to do now is package it for commercial use. Zhou Tinjuan nodded. Just say the word if you need any resources. We're fine for now. Later I might need your help connecting with channels from several cloud service providers. No problem. After the video call ended, I stood by the window of the new office. Below was a green belt under construction, and in the distance you could see traffic on the elevated highway. My phone vibrated. A text message. Sunai Yanking. Divorce procedures next Monday. I replied with one word. All right. The 30th day of the handover period. I officially resigned from SUSE Technology. That afternoon, SUSE Technology's internal systems started having issues. Not a complete crash. I had done basic stabilization during the handover period, but the performance of the core modules started to decline. Response speed slowed by 30%. Concurrent capacity dropped by half. Several major clients started filing complaints. This was expected. That system's architecture was tailor-made for my algorithm models. Without continuous optimization of the underlying algorithms, the system will only get slower and slower. Sunai Yanking must have noticed by now, but she hasn't contacted me. Monday morning, Civil Affairs Bureau. Sunai Yanking was wearing a camel coat, no makeup, her hair tied in a ponytail. We waited in line at the window. There were 3 couples ahead of us. One couple was arguing in low voices, another sat in silence, and the third looked calm, as if they were handling something ordinary. We were the third kind. When it was our turn, the staff glanced at our documents and asked a few routine questions. Are you sure you want a divorce voluntarily? Yes. The seal was stamped. We received the certificates. The whole process took less than 20 minutes from start to finish. When we walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Sunai Yanking stood on the steps and took out her car keys. The Siju, I stopped. What are your plans for the future? Doing my own thing. She nodded. Well, wish you all the best. Her voice was soft when she said this. Nothing like the decisive President Sue she'd been in the conference room before. She was just an ordinary 32-year-old woman saying a polite remark. You too. I turned and left. Didn't look back. The first month after Ruichi Technology was founded, the product prototype was ready. A lightweight distributed data processing platform for medium-sized enterprises. 3 times faster than similar products on the market, and 40% cheaper. The core advantage was my algorithm. He Chen Yuan took the sales team to start visiting clients. The first client to sign was a former partner of SUSE Technology. They reached out on their own because SUSE's system had slowed down and deliveries were frequently delayed. On the day of signing, He Cheng Yuan sent me a message. Annual fee contract, 3.8 million yuan. Our first revenue. Over the next 2 weeks we signed 4 more clients, one after another. By the end of the second month, Ruichi's monthly revenue had exceeded 8 million yuan. People in the industry started to notice us. A reporter from Tech Finance requested an exclusive interview. I couldn't control the headline, but I glanced at it when it was published. Stepping out of someone else's shadow, the Siju's tech entrepreneurship journey at Ruichi Technology. The accompanying photos showed me drawing an architecture diagram in front of a whiteboard in the office. The night the article was published, I received a WeChat message. It wasn't from Sunai Yanking. It was from Zhang Yebai. Congratulations, Mr. The. Free for a meal sometime? I stared at the message, feeling no desire to reply at all. I deleted it. The third month. SUSE Technology ran into difficulties with its Series C funding round. He Chen Yuan found out through his channels that Huasheng Capital had reduced its co-investment quota, citing doubts about the technological moat as the reason. 2 other institutions that had previously shown interest were also holding back and watching. Sunai Yanking started traveling frequently to meet investors. At the same time, personnel turnover began within SUSE Technology. 3 more people left the tech department, 2 came to Ruichi, and 1 went to a competitor. I didn't poach any of them actively. They reached out on their own. A month later, the CTO position at SUSE Technology changed hands. Young Yibai took on the role concurrently. I smiled when I saw the news. Putting someone with a business background in charge of a tech team. Sunai Yanking really had no one else left to use. The 4th month after Ruichi Technology was founded, Zhou Tinjuan invited me to dinner. The first thing he said when we sat down was, some institutions want to invest in your Series A round. Who? 2. One is a sub-fund of Sequoia, and the other is Mingxuan Capital, He Chengguan's old employer. What's the valuation? The figure they gave is 300 million yuan. I put down my chopsticks. 4 months. From zero to a 300 million yuan valuation. What do you think? Zhou Tinjuan asked. What are Ming Xuan's terms? Standard terms. No performance bet, no veto right. Sequoia wants a board seat. I thought for a few seconds. Reach out to both. No rush to decide. All right. Zhou Tinjuan smiled. You're really steady now. Different from when you first left. I wasn't flustered back then either. Yeah, you've never been flustered. He raised his glass. But being calm because you have confidence isn't the same as being calm without it. I didn't reply, just clinked glasses with him. Halfway through the meal, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Is this Mr. the Siju? Yes. Hello, Mr. I'm lawyer Zheng from Su's Technology's legal department. President Su asked me to contact you about purchasing the technology patent license. Tell your President Su to contact me directly. But President Su said, I've said what I needed to say. I hung up. Zhou Tinjuan watched me from across the table and didn't ask any more questions. 3 days later, Su Nianqing called. Siju, name your price for the patents. I sat in my office, the sunset outside gilding half the wall with golden light. 100 million yuan. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. 100 million? Don't buy it if you think it's too expensive. My tone was flat. But you know better than I do how much money. Your system is losing every day without core algorithms support. It's been 3 months. I'd guess your customer churn rate is at least 20%. Su Nianqing didn't argue. Because what I said was the truth. If you don't buy it, I'll launch a competing product next quarter. Then whether your clients come to me or not won't be up to you. The Siju? When did you become like this? I've always been like this. I twirled the pen in my hand. You just couldn't see me when I was behind you. There was 5 seconds of silence on the other end. 100 million. I need to discuss it with the board. Fine. I'll give you a week. I hung up. He Chengyuan poked his head in from the door. 100 million? Will she pay it? Doesn't matter. I put down the pen. If she pays, I'll use the money to keep growing. If she doesn't, I'll take her clients. He Chengyuan grinned slightly. You're kinda scary like this now. Thanks. A week later. Su Nianqing didn't give an answer. But she did something else. She had Jiang Yibai lead the tech team in an attempt to bypass my patents and build a new underlying architecture from scratch. I found out through a former colleague. Mr. They're rewriting the underlying layer. Jiang Yibai hired an external team, says they can get it done in 3 months. I smiled after hearing that. 3 months? I spent 2 years refining that architecture. He gets an outsourcing team and thinks he can do it in 3 months? Let them write it. Aren't you worried? No. Facts prove my judgment right. 2 months later, Su's technology system suffered a major outage. Interface conflicts between the new architecture and the old system caused core business operations to be interrupted for 6 hours. 6 hours. For a B2B enterprise, this was a catastrophic incident. 2 major clients terminated their contracts that same day. The next day, Su's Technology's stock price, they just listed on the new third board last year, dropped by 11%. The industry media headline was straightforward. Su's technology system crashes. Aftermath of former CTO's departure erupts. When this news broke, I was signing the Series A funding documents for Ruichi Technology. Sequoia's subfund led the round, with Ming Xuan Capital following on. Total financing amount, 80 million yuan. Post money. Valuation 400 million yuan. The night after signing, the team had dinner together. When He Chengyuan raised his glass, he said, I knew this day would come when you walked out of that office half a year ago. I clinked glasses with him and said nothing. Half a year. From being humiliated in public to where I am now. It only took half a year. But it wasn't over yet. The next day. An email. Sender Su Nianqing. Subject. Regarding technology patent licensing. The body had only one sentence. 100 million. I agree. Please arrange a time to sign the contract. I stared at the email. 100 million yuan. Back then, the divorce agreement she gave me didn't even include alimony. Now she's spending 100 million to buy back something she thought she'd never lose. I replied to the email. Next Monday, our lawyers will coordinate with your legal department. On the day of signing, Su Nyanking came in person. Both teams of lawyers were seated in the conference room, 6 people total. When she walked in, I was reviewing the final version of the contract. She sat across from me, her gaze lingering on me for 2 seconds before she looked away. The entire signing process took 40 minutes. Clause confirmation, signing, stamping, payment. The 100 million would be paid in 3 installments. The first installment of 40 million arrived that same day. After all procedures were completed, the lawyers started packing up the documents. Su Nyanking stood up and walked to the window. The Siju, are you doing well now? I put the cap back on the pen and set it on the desk. Pretty good. She had her back to me, looking out the window. Did I do a lot of things wrong in the past? It wasn't really a question. She knew the answer. Su Nyanking. I stood up. Once this contract is signed, all business relations between us are over. How your company develops from now on has nothing to do with me. How I run my company is none of your business either. She turned around. Her eyes were slightly red, but there were no tears. All right. She walked to the door and pulled it open. She glanced back at me before leaving. About that 5.2 million. I'm sorry. The door closed. I sat back down in my chair. I'm sorry, 3 words. 6 months too late. But I didn't need those words anymore. The 3rd day after signing, a rumor spread through the industry. Jiang Yabai, special assistant at Su's Technology, had been reported internally for allegedly using his position to channel benefits to affiliated companies. The source of the report materials was unknown, but I knew who did it. He Chang Yuan. He sent me a message that day. What I promised you is done. The materials were delivered to Su's audit committee and external directors through anonymous channels. I replied with 2 words, thanks. What happened next unfolded quickly. Su's Technology launched an internal investigation. Jiang Yabai's Cayman Shell Company was uncovered. 7 transfers totaling 12 million yuan. There was more during his tenure. He had embezzled over 20 million yuan through fake suppliers. Some of that money went into his own pocket. Some went places Su Nyanking didn't know about. And some went places Su Nyanking knew about and tacitly allowed. I wasn't sure if Su Nyanking knew the full story, but she knew at least part of it. Otherwise she wouldn't have looked so guilty in front of me. On the day the investigation results came out, Jiang Yabai was fired. Su's Technology reported the case to the police. When Yi Changyuan told me about this, I was reviewing the design document for Ruichi's second product. Has Jiang Yabai been arrested? Not yet. He's out on bail pending trial. But he basically can't get away with it. The amount meets the standard for filing a case. I nodded and continued reading the document. How do you feel about it? He Chen Yuan leaned against the doorframe. I don't feel much about it. Really? I looked up at him. Really? He's him, she's her. Things between her and me are over. He got caught for breaking the law. Has nothing to do with me. He Chen Yuan looked at me for 2 seconds, then smiled. All right. You're more clear-headed than I thought. He left. I went back to reading the document. It was getting dark outside the window. The lights in the office turned on automatically. I stayed a little longer to wrap up the day's work, then turned off my computer. When I walked out of the company building, the oncoming wind carried a hint of autumn chill. I stood by the roadside waiting for a while. A car pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down. It was a face I didn't recognize well, not entirely unfamiliar. I'd met her once at a dinner arranged by the technical director of Shen's Real Estate, one of Ruichi's new clients. But she wasn't the one driving, it was her. Mr. Chengwan. She smiled slightly. We met at Shen's technical coordination meeting last week. I'm a data architect at Shen's. Oh, right. Engineer Chung. Are you off work? Want a ride since we're going the same way? I glanced at the ride-hailing app on my phone. There was still an 8. Minute wait. Thanks, that would be great. I got into the passenger seat. The car was clean, no perfume scent, just the faint fresh air from the air conditioner. She drove steadily. Which direction do you live in, mister? The south of the city, near the science park. Perfect, it's on my way. We didn't talk much during the ride. When we arrived at my apartment building, I thanked her and got out. She rolled down the window. Mr. I'll be at the technical coordination meeting next week too. All right. I have a few proposals I'd like you to look at then. Just send them to me by email, got it? She smiled. Good night. Good night. The car drove away. I stood downstairs and watched the car's taillights disappear at the intersection. I didn't think much of it. I went upstairs. I unlocked the door. The apartment was empty, only the motion sensor light in the entryway was on. I changed my shoes and walked into the living room. There was half a leftover takeout meal from yesterday in the fridge. I heated it up and sat at the dining table to eat. My phone screen lit up. It was a news notification. Former Special Assistant of Suez Technology, Jung Ye-bei, formally arrested on suspicion of embezzlement. I flipped my phone face down and kept eating. The 8th month after Ruichi Technology was founded. Monthly revenue exceeded 30 million yuan. The team expanded from 8 people to 50. We moved into a new office, taking up an entire floor. Our product line expanded from 1 to 3. 12 listed companies were already on our client list. More than half of the 80 million yuan from our Series A round was still left. We had already achieved positive cash flow. That's an almost impossible speed for a B2B company. At the board meeting, Jo Tinjuan said, Ruichi is the fastest project I've ever invested in to recoup its costs. During the same period, the situation at Suez Technology was the exact opposite. After Jiang Yabai was arrested, morale inside Suez was unstable. Another wave of people left the tech team. The Series C funding round fell through completely. No institution was willing to step in at this critical juncture. Its stock price on the new third board had dropped 40% from its peak. An industry media outlet wrote a comparative article, Ruichi vs. Suez, an industry earthquake triggered by a tech exodus. I didn't read it. He Chengyuan read it and forwarded it to me with a note. It's fairly objective. I replied with a All of this felt like a thing of the past to me. What I cared about now was the next stage. The 9th month. Chengwan became Ruichi's regular liaison. Shen's real estate had signed a substantial annual technical service contract with us, and she came once a week. Gradually, once a week turned into twice a week. After the coordination meetings, we would occasionally grab a casual meal together. She never asked about my past, and I never brought it up on my own. Once during dinner, she said something out of the blue. Mr. I read that exclusive interview. Which one? The one from Tech Finance. Titled Stepping Out of Someone Else's Shadow. I paused mid-bite with my chopsticks. It was well written. She looked at me. But I don't think you stepped out of someone's shadow. You were always standing in the light. Someone was just blocking you before. I said nothing. She didn't say anything more either and bowed her head to eat. After dinner, she drove me back to my apartment. The car stopped downstairs. Before I got out, she stopped me. Mr. Can I stop calling you Mr.? From now on. I looked at her. What would you call me instead? The Siju. She tilted her head and looked at me. All 3 characters. I stood by the car door silent for 2 seconds. All right. She smiled. I closed the car door and went upstairs. I went to bed a little earlier than usual that night. The 10th month. Chengwan and I officially got together. There was no grand dramatic confession scene. One weekend she came to the office to pick up some materials, and I had just finished working overtime. We stood together in the elevator. She pressed the first floor button, and so did I. When we got out of the elevator, she didn't head for her car. She waited for me in the lobby. Want to get something to eat? Sure. After dinner, as we walked along the river, she reached out and held my hand. I didn't pull away. I didn't say much either. That was it. When Chengyuan found out, he just said, Chengwan is a good person. Steady and reliable. I nodded. Jo Tinjuan didn't say much either when he found out. Just sent a thumbs up emoji on WeChat. The 11th month. Ruichi Technology received a letter of intent for acquisition. The sender Sue's Technology. I sat in my office staring at the document, silent for a full 3 minutes. Suze wanted to acquire 51% of Ruichi's shares through an equity swap. The offer was based on our Series A valuation, with a 20% premium. In other words, she was offering nearly 500 million yuan worth of Sue's Technology shares, in exchange for controlling interest in Ruichi. He Chenjuan smiled after reading it. She's at the end of her rope. Her system can't hold up and she can't keep her tech team. The only way out is to tie you back to her. Only this time it's not with marriage. With equity. I closed the document. Reject it. Reject it outright? Outright. He Chenyuan stood up and walked out. At the door he turned back and asked, what reason should I give? Want me to phrase it politely? No need. Just say Ruichi Technology currently has no intention of being acquired. Got it. That afternoon the rejection letter was sent over. The next morning, Su Nyanking called. I didn't answer. She sent a WeChat message. Siju, can we meet? Not about work. I glanced at the message. I replied with 2 words, no thanks. Then I closed the chat window. The 12th month after Ruichi Technology was founded. Our first anniversary. That same day, something else happened. We received the term sheet for our Series B funding round. The lead investor was a top domestic industrial fund, with 3 co-investors. Post money. Valuation 1.2 billion yuan. From 0 to 1.2 billion. In 1 year. On the day of signing, the whole team applauded in the conference room. I stood in front of the whiteboard looking at all the people who had come this far with me. The 2 technical supervisors who left with me first, the sales director He Chengyuan poached, the product manager and designer who joined later, and Chang Wanshid officially joined Ruichi 3 months ago as head of data architecture. It's been a year, I said. Thank you all. There was no long speech. After everyone dispersed, Chengwan walked over. What are we eating tonight? Up to you. Hot pot? Sure. It was that simple. That night our group went out for hot pot. The pot bubbled with steam. He Chengyuan had a few drinks and started telling dirty jokes. Until the admin girl next to him hit him on the head with her chopsticks. Chengwan sat next to me and cooked a plate of tripe for me. I ate the tripe, looked at everyone at the table, and suddenly thought. The version of me gripping the steering wheel in that underground parking garage 3 years ago would probably find all this pretty unreal. If he could see this table today. But it's real. Every step of it I walked myself. After dinner, Chengwan walked beside me, arm in arm. The Siju, are you happy? I am. She glanced up at me and smiled. That's good then. The wind blew by. The early autumn night was pleasant. Fallen leaves swirled down one by one under the streetlights. I suddenly thought of that afternoon a year ago, when I walked out of the conference room. Su Nyanking standing in front of the projection screen dropping 5.2 million yuan in front of another man. That day I thought I'd lost everything. Looking back now, I didn't lose anything that day. I just finally got back what was rightfully mine. 2 months later, Ruichi Technology launched its 3rd product. It was a real-time data processing system for the financial industry, and had passed POC testing at 3 banks. Over 200 people showed up on launch day. Media, clients, investors, industry peers. As I stood on stage doing the product demo, there was someone sitting in the 3rd row. Su Nyanking. She hadn't notified anyone in advance, and she hadn't been invited. She'd bought a ticket and come on her own. After the launch event she didn't come to see me. She just stood in the hallway outside the venue and glanced at me from a distance. Then she left. Afterwards He Chengyuan told me. Su Nyanking was here today. Did you know? I know. What was her purpose? I don't know. And it doesn't matter. He Chengyuan didn't say anything else. Another 3 months passed. News came. Sue's Technology had been acquired. The buyer was a listed cloud computing company. Acquisition price 600 million yuan. Less than half of Sue's peak valuation. Su Nyanking kept a consultant title, but had effectively handed over control. She was 34. The company she'd built from scratch had been valued at 1.5 billion yuan at its peak. In the end, it was sold for 600 million yuan. The difference in between was the price of losing its core technology. I was cooking at home when the news broke. Chungwan was watching TV in the living room. She glanced at the push notification that popped up on her phone, then asked me, "Want some chili? Add some extra? Whatever you like." She didn't mention Sunayanking. Neither did I. I finished chopping the vegetables and the pan heated up. Oil sizzled at the bottom of the pan. This is what life is like now. There's nothing left to prove. Nothing left to compare with anyone. All the debts that were owed have been collected. All the paths that needed to be walked have been cleared. And everything that needed to be let go of has been let go. Chungwan poked her head in from the living room. The Siju, did you forget to add salt? No, liar. I can tell. It tastes like plain water. She walked over and picked up the salt shaker. Move aside, let me do it. I stepped to the side. I watched her bustling around the stove in her apron. Chungwan. Do you regret being with me? She didn't turn around. No. But if you keep making food with no salt, I might have to reconsider. I reached out and took the spatula back from her hand. Then I'll add salt. Go ahead. Steam rose from the pan. Outside the window, lights glowed in thousands of homes. 2 years later, Ruichi Technology listed on the Star Market. The issue price was 28 yuan per share, and it rose to 47 yuan on the first day of trading. Market capitalization 5.2 billion yuan. On the day of the bell-ringing ceremony, I stood in the exchange hall in a dark suit. Beside me stood Chungwan, He Chengyuan, Zhou Tingyuan, and the group of people who'd left with me at the very beginning. When the gong sounded, everyone in the venue applauded. Chungwan stood next to me. She didn't clap, she just looked at me and smiled. She was 6 months pregnant and her belly was showing. I reached out and put my arm around her shoulder. Thank you for everything. It's nothing. She patted the back of my hand. But you owe me a fancy dinner. All right. He Chenyuan leaned over and clapped me on the shoulder. Mister. You're the boss of a listed company now. Stop calling me Mister. Then what should I call you? Anything. Just not Mister. The fine then, said you. I nodded. When we walked out of the exchange, the sun was shining perfectly outside. Chungwan walked arm in arm with me, a little slower than usual. The Siju. Do you feel like life is pretty worth it now? I looked at the road ahead, wide and straight with sycamore leaves on both sides rustling in the wind. Yeah. Better than that day in the underground parking garage 2 years ago? No comparison, she smiled. Good. We walked toward the car, parked by the roadside. I opened the passenger door for her to get in. I walked around to the driver's seat and started the engine. The car pulled onto the main road. In the rearview mirror, the exchange building grew farther and farther away. I glanced at it, then turned my gaze back to the road ahead. The road ahead was long. Sunlight spilled across the entire road. As the technical backbone of the company, the hero built the business from scratch with his wife. Yet at the annual conference, he watched her award a huge bonus to her male assistant while ignoring his contributions, and soon received a divorce agreement trying to force him to leave with nothing. Holding core technology patents, he resolutely quit and founded a new firm with solid capabilities, achieving skyrocketing valuation within a year and gaining both career success and sincere love. His ex-wife's company declined steadily due to the loss of core technology and cronyism. The corrupt assistant was finally arrested and the enterprise had to be acquired at a low price. The story warns, never underestimate those who silently support you. Taking a partner's dedication for granted and testing boundaries with injustice will eventually backfire. True strength lies in one's own solid capabilities, which never betray you. Castles in the air built on speculation and favoritism are doomed to collapse.